The impact of young people who do not marry, do not have children, and do not buy homes has finally arrived. After the parents of this generation pass away, these people end up evolving into what are called invincible individuals. Japan, long known for its safety, has seen public order deteriorate as serious incidents caused by these invincibles increase.
So one of the advantages that America has had is Latin America. I'll explain why. You see, while many parts of the world is experiencing low birth rates, America simply solved this problem by importing more immigrants from Latin America. That has always been one of their go-to places to, solve the issue of, lack of labor, a lack of young people, and so on. There's something about high-tech countries like Japan, China, Korea that cause their people to have low birth rates. I believe Japan was one of the first countries that was known for having low birth rates. It made the news in the 2010s. But now the rest of Asia is catching up with the trend. What is up, guys? It's your boy Andy Matrix. I'm back with another video here on Angry Guys YouTube channel. Guys, if you haven't heard of me, make sure to follow me on my YouTube channel, Andy Matrix Gaming, where I talk about anime, gaming, Japanese culture. And make sure to like this video. Make sure to comment below. Help push this video up the algorithm. And guys, make sure to follow Angry Guy on Rumble, because he's got some content over there that he's not uploading on YouTube, because it's not allowed on YouTube, right? So click the link in the description, follow him on Rumble. And also, guys, the economy is in shambles. We've lost millions of jobs. People are being pushed into homelessness. This is happening as we speak. 2026 is not looking any better. A lot of people are going to have to find ways to make money, start their own business, start their own side hustles, which is why Angry Guy created the Content Creator Academy, where he's going to teach you how to build an audience online like he did here on YouTube, create a digital product that people can start purchasing, and so that you can start generating an income and start saying goodbye to the 9-to-5. Okay, so click the link in the description to check out the Content Creator Academy. Now, let's get on with the show. So you've read the title of this video, and today we're going to be reacting to a YouTube channel called All Asian Dilemmas. So here they're not going to be talking about a specific country. I know in previous videos we talked about China, the issues in China, but now we're going to be talking about just Asia in general. That's no marriage, no kids, no home. Now, please keep in mind, this does not apply to all Asian countries. There's still Asian countries like Thailand and the Philippines that are still having babies. Okay, they're still, giving birth, having babies. So this doesn't apply to every Asian country, but it just seems to only, if you've noticed, seem to only apply to the countries that are very advanced, like China, Korea, Japan. So I believe those are who we're going to be talking about today. Now, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's see what they got to say.
The impact of young people who do not marry, do not have children, and do not buy homes has finally arrived. After the parents of this generation pass away, these people end up evolving into what are called invincible individuals. Japan, long known for its safety, has seen public order deteriorate as serious incidents caused by these invincibles increase. Here, invincible does not mean someone with extraordinary abilities or literal invulnerability, but rather people without ties, no family, unstable jobs, no assets, a low sense of social presence, ignored by society, and without hope for life.
I really like how every single country kind of gives a name to these types of people. Like here in America, we call them NEET, right? N-E-E-T, right? No job, no education, no employment, and I think what does the T stand for? I forgot. But, I thought that in Japan, well, one of the main problems that Japan had is the hikikomori. And the hikikomori, if you haven't heard, is basically these types of people that they withdrawn from society. They stay home. They don't leave their house. I'm not joking. When I say they don't leave their house, I mean, I think they just order takeout and that's it. Yeah, the hikikomoris. But I haven't heard of the invincible people in Japan. I think, maybe they have a different word for it in Japanese, not in English, right? But basically, no job, no family, no marriage, no nothing. Nothing holding them back. Basically, and I like how they call these single people invincible. Basically, like nothing is holding them back. So almost as if to say this is a good thing for these people, right? Almost as if to say that. But this is not just in Japan. But something. I still remember in the 2010s, right? In the 2010s, and one of the first times that I heard that this was happening, I think it was in 2012 to 2014. That's when we started to hear about Japan declining birth rate, and people were saying that Japan was going to disappear within 50 years or so because they were having like no kids anymore, and like the birth rate was going down every year. Like at least in the 2010s, they were having like a million babies per year. Right now, it's down to like 600,000 babies per year. Now, that's horrible. And like 50% of those babies, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe 50% of those babies are like half Japanese, half something else. Right? And it's also happening in Korea. Obviously, Korea has like 8 million single people. 8 million single people, right? No kids, no marriage, no nothing, right? But one thing is for sure. It's like even though they're single, a lot of these people are still doing the horizontal boogie in the bedroom. We all know that. Yeah, so they call them invincible people, right? Invincible people. And one of the things that Japan is going to start doing to these people is they're going to start taxing them. They got to get something out of them. If we're not getting a baby out of you, if we're not getting like, labor from you in the workforce, if we're not getting taxes from you, if we're not getting something from you, we're going to start taxing single people. You need to have some type of worth in this society. And of course, the government, the only worth they see in their people is taxes, is money. And again, it's called a single tax. And it's going to start in Japan. I think Japan is going to start it next year, 2026. I believe. I'm not completely sure. But I'm telling you right now that once Japan starts taxing single people, then it's going to be Korea. Then it's going to be China. Then it's going to be other parts of Asia. Then it's going to go into probably Europe. And then from Europe, it's going to go over to America. Or America is probably going to be one of the countries that catch up along with Asia. Who knows? Because here in America, there's a lot of single people. There's a lot of single people here in America too. They're dating. Some of them are dating, right? And by dating, I mean doing the horizontal boogie. That's what dating is now. That's what dating is, just doing the horizontal boogie, right? Many of them are still doing that. But it's single, like just living alone with parents in their parents' basement, living in their car, living in a van, or living with roommates, something, right? So anyways, let's go back and continue to see what they got to say about these invincible people.
This makes the invincibles more prone to extreme behavior. After all, those who walk barefoot are not afraid of those wearing shoes. They have no weak points, nothing left to lose, and therefore become a factor of social instability. After the assassination of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, internet users discovered that the perpetrator, Yamagami Tetsuya, was also one of these invincibles. He was over 40 years old, unmarried, childless, his father had passed away, and although his mother was alive, she was connected to a cult, which in practice left him without a family. The perpetrator of the knife attack and arson on the Tokyo subway calmly smoked after the crime. He too was an invincible, someone deeply dissatisfied with society. For a long time, Japan was a symbol of low birth rates, which is one of the important reasons for the mass emergence of these invincibles. However, today Japan is being surpassed by its neighbors, who have even lower birth rates and even more fragmented societies. Yes, we are talking about South Korea. Currently, South Korea's birth rate is even lower than Japan's, and the so-called cigarette butt phenomenon has emerged.
South Korea is something special. South Korea really is something special because they're always like one step behind Japan, right? Like a decade or two behind Japan. And I'm not talking about in progression, like, technology and things like that. I'm talking about in popularity because, what was it? K-pop didn't really, to my understanding, K-pop didn't really start to rise up in the West until like the 2010s, right? Something like that. Because, was in FYE and Hot Topic here in America, I didn't start to see like posters of K-pop stars until I'm gonna say 2015, 2014, something like that, around that time, right? And then we had, for the longest time, Japan dominated with anime and manga. But then recently in the 2010s, Korea came out with webtoons, manhwa they call it, manhwa, right? So Korea is always like a decade behind Japan in popularity, something like that, right? And while Japan they're only having like what 600,000 babies per year, which is not good. They're losing more people than they're being born, right? Korea, it's even lower. You also gotta remember that Korea's population is like half of Japan, like 50 million people, right? So their birth rate is like it's not even in the 100,000s. It's like what 30,000, 40. It's like I think 20,000 to 40,000 new baby borns per year, right? That is extremely low. And one of the funny things, one of the funny things that I found out about Korea is that they don't like, at least in public, at least in Seoul, in the streets, they don't like children. Like if you walk into a place with a child, like there's certain places they won't let you in with kids. I don't know what it is, but they for some reason they don't like kids. They don't like children. It's very weird. It's very strange. But yeah, in Korea, like I said before, they have 8 million single people. That's of all ages, from like I think from like the teen years, 18 to I believe 30, right? Gen Z and millennials. And they're not doing any better than Japan. And here's something that confuses me about Korea, right? Because at least Japan is known for anime and manga. That's like one of their top selling things, along with like Toyota, Honda, right? But anime and manga is like highly distributed throughout the world from Japan. Now, Korea got popular or well known with K dramas, Korean dramas, and K-pop, right? With the BTS and what's it, Blackpink and all these types of pop stars. I hope I'm getting this right, man. I'm not an expert in Korean culture, okay? But that's how Korea became popular in the 2010s, right? So they promote this image of being hot, being beautiful, and even in the girls, similar to the Colombian girls, the Korean girls, they do surgery to like get big boobs, get a nice butt. They do all these surgeries in Koreans to look good, but I'm wondering, what's the purpose? What's the purpose of looking hot if you're not doing the boogie boogie? You know what I'm saying? If you're not doing the horizontal boogie, what's the purpose of looking hot? That's my criticism on Korea, right? Because there's a lot of hot chicks over there, a lot of hot Korean women, but they're not having babies, right? They're not having babies. So you look good, but you're not being active, right? Or you're still single. Like the whole purpose, like biologically speaking, right? From a natural point of view, from like what's the word I'm looking for? From like an evolutionary point of view, right? We're supposed to. The reason why humans like to look good for other people is because they're looking for somebody, right? Women like to look really hot because they're looking for a good man to provide for them. They're looking for a husband, right? Isn't that true? But they're not dating. They're not dating. They're not dating. And the only, like, at least what I'm seeing in the East with like Korea, China, Japan, in many Asian countries, is that they might not be dating people in their own home country, right? But they are dating a lot when they go overseas. So they're very open to dating foreigners, but they're not open to dating their own people. And I think this is something that is happening a lot nowadays. And I think it's because of the internet, social media, being able to see people from other countries. I believe that's why. And guys, before we continue, remember, there's been millions and millions of layoffs, especially here in America. There's been about, I believe, 5 million layoffs. In 2026, it's going to be even worse. People are being pushed into homelessness. People are being pushed into living in their cars, living in RVs, living in vans, going back home to live with family and parents, right? And a lot of people cannot find a new job after getting laid off, right? So, and as the economy keeps going down and down, just into a downward spiral, a lot of people are going to be pushed into being entrepreneurs, starting their own side hustle, starting their own businesses, looking for ways to make money. And that is why the Angry Guy created the Angry Content Creator Academy. Okay, where you can learn how to build an audience like he did here on YouTube, build an audience and create a digital product that can start generating an income for you so you can say goodbye to the 9 to 5. So guys, make sure to click the link in the description to check out the Content Creator Academy. If you sign up today, you'll get a free guide. Click the link in the description, check it out. And now let's continue on with the video.
In many places, children are not allowed. Among young people, the so-called 3 abandonments generation has appeared, abandoning dating, marriage, and having children. Going further, the 5 abandonments generation has emerged, which also gives up buying a home and maintaining complex social relationships. These factors have made South Korea the country with the lowest birth rate in the world, below 0.8. After all, when a game demands too much money and too much effort, veteran players do not recommend that new players join. Earth Online works the same way. Even so, South Korea's lowest birth rate may, in the future, be surpassed by other countries with even lower numbers. In our Earth Online, there is no option to watch an ad to revive. Each life exists only once. The foundation for the emergence of the Invincibles is rigid social classes, extremely high rates of single people, and lifelong non-marriage. When parents die, there are no more ties. There is no one left in this world worth protecting. From that point on, these people evolve into invincibles. Class rigidity prevents them from seeing paths of upward mobility, causes them to lose expectations for the future, and leaves them without goals. Without goals, even small dissatisfaction can turn into aggression.
Okay, so listen, this applies to both men and women. This applies to both men and women because they're talking about the five exclusions: no dating, marriage, children, and now no home, right? They're not buying homes either. I mean, what the heck is the point of buying a home if you don't have a family? The whole point of buying a house is to put a family in it, is to put people in it, right? But if it's just you might as well just go live with your parents. Or you might as well just keep living in an apartment for years and years, right? So, and also remember, guys, that in countries like, in a lot of Asian countries, maybe not China, but I know in Korea and in Japan, a lot of people, because they live in these crowded cities, most of them live in apartments. So in order to buy a house, you got to get out of the city. in Seoul, it's a lot of apartments, right? It's a lot of apartments, but got a little distracted there. The point is, this is just worldwide. Is like buying a house for yourself. You're just giving yourself more responsibilities, and most people know that, right? Most people know that. Like I know the reason why dudes don't buy houses is because, well, I mean, I don't have a family. Why the heck would I buy one? And also it's a lot of money. I don't want to put all that money into a house that I'm not, I'm not gonna be spending a lot of time in, So that's the whole point. That's the whole reason.
If the attack is random, as a form of revenge against society, it is even harder to prevent. Killing a completely unrelated passerby for no apparent reason is the hardest type of crime to investigate. The Invincibles can be seen as a kind of chronic disease of postmodernity. Modern industrialized society has broken clan and family ties, weakened intimate human relationships, and, combined with the constantly rising rate of single people, has made society increasingly atomized. These are the social foundations for the emergence of the Invincibles.
Okay, so they're actually still talking about Korea, which is why I want to say this. So there was this Korean person, right? There was this Korean person who told me, this is what they told me. I'm not making this up. I was told by a Korean person what's happening in Korea. So I'm just going to reiterate what they said, okay? According to them, Korea is very, 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 very competitive. When it comes to school, when it comes to work, this is very, 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 very competitive in Korea. Okay? I remember the guy told me that in high school, like whenever there's a test, they would put the scores outside of the classroom on a board where everybody can see. Where everybody can see. So if you get a D or a C or an F, everybody will see that you're a failure. And they shame each other, right? They shame each other and they pressure each other to get better grades. Right? So Asians are very competitive in that sense. The working culture is very competitive, schools very competitive, and kids over there, they spend more time in school, more time in learning stuff than they do at home. Right? Than they do at home. That's what they do. So in countries like Korea and in Japan, the suicide rate is so high, right? The suicide rate is so high that some people will commit suicide simply because they failed a test and their friends humiliated them. This happens all the time. So it's not just that that people are not dating, getting married, and having kids. It's also they have this culture where like they pressure each other so much that some people can't take it and they jump off a building. Also, I don't know how they haven't figured this out, man. I don't know how they haven't figured this out because at least in Europe and in Western countries like America, we know that we need to take a break. We know that we need vacation time. We got to take a break and all that. But listen. In Asia, you guys probably already heard about Japan. What's it called? Damn, I forgot the Japanese word for it. But it's when people die at work, right? Which is starting to happen in America. It's starting to happen in America, but it's more common in Japan and in Korea, right? People die at work. They work themselves way too much. So if you have a work culture that's working people to death, maybe you should change that. But of course, like many countries, because the corporations and the government work closely together, they don't do anything about that. And the government doesn't try to stop the corporations, right? They just kind of make these new rules, say, oh, you got to give them more vacation time, which many times they don't even use. Like the Japanese, I think they have 2 weeks to a month of vacation time, and they only use like a few days throughout the year. Like people over there are so addicted to their work, they're like workaholics. That's why they're one of the richest countries in the world, Japan and Korea. Yeah, but the working culture is so toxic over there. People die at work. Teenage suicide is so much more common in Japan and Korea than it is in America. I mean, in America, like the worst thing that will happen, you get bullied in school and you get into a fight, maybe you get punched in the face. But like you don't really hear. I mean, we got school shooters here. Like, excuse me. I really can't talk shit. Because here in America we got school shooters. Maybe I should. In America, we got school shooters. We shouldn't be talking shit. By the way, did you know that in 2025 there was 230 school shootings? Some of which were not even reported. Because in the news, we heard about a couple of school shootings, but there were 230 school shootings in America in 2025. That's scary. That's scary. So, yeah, we shouldn't be talking. But anyways, that's the reason why. It's like if you want your people to to reproduce, to get married, have kids, and do all these things, you're gonna have to change so many things about the culture. Because it's hard to have kids when you're freaking exhausted every freaking day, and you don't even have time for dating. I've heard in Japan, and I know this because I've been in Japan. In Japan, there are women that say that you have to make an appointment with them to go on a date. Yeah, it's true. You gotta it's like a doctor's appointment to go on a date. That's how busy they are.
People without ties, in an atomized society, are like a social cancer, and so far, there is no truly effective solution. After all countries, after industrialization, see birth rates drop drastically, and this process shows no signs of slowing down. I am Fugue, a video creator who observes human nature. Follow me, and let's surf the internet together.
Okay, so I'm actually really glad that she said this, right? I'm really glad that she said this. Basically, that countries that have been highly industrialized, they start to see a low birth rate. And we know that Japan started having low birth rates in late 1990s and in the early 2000s. That's when it really started. When people said, you know what, it's getting harder and harder to have kids. Okay, that's when they said that, right? Because next to America, Japan back then was one of the richest countries. But then it started to catch up everywhere else. It also used to be that China had what, 1.5 billion people in China, right? And they took a lot of factory jobs from America, right? They took a lot of factory jobs from America, and they started to mass reproduce many things, and that's how they became rich. But in the last 15 years, right, since again the 2010s, the year when the millennials were in their 20s, such as myself, the 2010s, that is when when the Chinese birth rate started to drop. And again, look, I'm 36 years old. I'm starting to sound like a freaking old guy here. I remember in the 2010s, this along with Japan. This is along with Japan. Most people already knew about the Japanese birth rate in the 2010s, but later towards the 2010s, I'm gonna say 2017, 2018, we then started to hear that China is also starting to have issues with birth rates, right? Because for the longest time, China only allowed, 2 children per household, right? Only 2 kids per household because they were getting so overpopulated, they were trying to control the birth rates. But in the late 2010s, China was like, yo, we kind of need more people now, so maybe we should change the rules. You know what? We're going to remove this. We're going to remove the 2-child policy. Give us 3 kids, right? Give us 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids, please. We're running out. Oh, man. And look, and one of the reasons this started to happen is because China has become an advanced civilization, along with Japan and Korea. I mean, China has freaking cyberpunk cities. I repeat, cyberpunk cities. You've probably seen the viral videos of Chongqing, China, right? Chongqing, China, Shenzhen, Beijing, Zhangzhou, Ganzhou. Was it Ganzhou? I think it's called Ganzhou. I don't know how to pronounce it, damn it. Shenzhen, I think is the other one. They have a lot of cyberpunk cities, dude. And here's what starts to happen. What starts to happen is that people become so comfortable that they don't want to have kids. They don't want to have kids. And in these societies, well, not all societies, because at least in China is a very affordable place. So honestly, the Chinese people don't really have an excuse, because I understand here in America we're paying $2,000 in rent, and Japan is really not that expensive either, right? But in China, they really don't have an excuse to not reproduce, because China has affordable apartments everywhere. Everywhere they have affordable apartments, affordable food, transportation. You don't even need to buy a car in China, similar to Japan. But the reason they're not having kids nowadays is because a lot of people are getting comfortable in society. A comfortable society creates these types of people that just don't want to have kids. That's the truth. And we're starting to see it now in America. The only difference in America's not advanced as China. America's kind of crappy, honestly. America has become kind of crappy, honestly.
In the end, the truth is simple, direct, and a little uncomfortable to admit. Unfortunately, there isn't much that can be done about this issue, at least not in the romantic way politicians, commentators, and pro-natalist campaigns like to pretend there is. The modern world is not an open space of infinite choices, much less a neutral field where simply wanting it is enough for everything to work out. It looks far more like a poorly balanced game, where you are born with a predefined build, locked attributes, and a pre-programmed path. You don't choose where you are born, you don't choose who your parents are, you don't choose your social class, you don't choose the country, the culture, or the historical moment. And in much of Asia, you don't even choose the script of your own life. From an early age, everything is already set. Study hard, compete with everyone, accept the pressure, work to the limit, buy a home that cost decades of your life, get married within an invisible deadline, have children before the biological clock turns into an enemy, carry all of this emotionally, and still smile through it. The famous free will that has always been sold as a universal value may never have truly existed. What existed was the illusion of choice, and for a long time, it worked. It worked because the game still seemed worth it, because effort still appeared to lead somewhere, because sacrifice came with some believable promise of a future. But that changed. Young people noticed. They realized that the margin of choice was always minimal, that the path was drawn long before they even understood the rules, and that many of life's important decisions had already been made in advance. And when that realization hits, when you understand that the game was never designed for you to win, two options appear. The first is to keep playing, pretending everything is fine, following rules you didn't create, competing in an increasingly cruel system, and waiting for a reward that may never come. The second option is to voluntarily leave the game. And that is exactly what many young people are doing. Not getting married, not having children, not buying a home, not entering complex relationships, not taking on long-term commitments that require a level of stability the system itself no longer provides.
So another thing that I wanted to say about this is because, and this is an issue all over the world. America, the West, East, Asia, North America, South America. And what has happened? What has happened is that technology and social media and the internet has created this illusion, right? It's created this illusion of choice, that there are unlimited choices, and especially young people, they feel like there's so much out there that they gotta try something, right? They gotta try, I don't know, they gotta try like at least 50 to 100 things before they settle down, right? That's the problem, is we have so many choices, unlimited choices now, or so we think that people have this, I don't know if it's like analysis paralysis. I know it's part of the problem. But it's like they think that, oh, eventually I'll get what I want. Eventually I'll get exactly what I want. And I've actually fallen for this too, guys. But that's one of the main issues nowadays, is just the illusion of choice, right? Because technology, the internet, social media, it makes us think that we have so many choices. But, and to be fair, we kind of do. But what people don't seem to understand is that you're going to have to make up your mind, because the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking. You were 18 years old yesterday, and today you're 30, 40 years old. And technology makes time fly even faster. I don't know if you noticed, man. But it feels like time is flying, bro. It feels like time is flying. I mean, I still remember when I was 18. Okay, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go that far back, but I'll give you an example. COVID, the pandemic. It was just 5 years ago. It feels like it was like a year ago, at least to me. But the COVID, the pandemic, was only 5 years ago. Think about that.
Not because they hate life, not because they are weak, immature, or selfish, but because they understood the real cost of continuing to play. They looked at the effort required, looked at the return offered, and concluded that it simply wasn't worth it. This is not youthful rebellion, not laziness, not a lack of values. It is a rational decision within a system that has become structurally hostile. When the only real choice is left a few, people begin to value exactly that, the little control they still have. If they can't choose the beginning, at least they choose how they continue, or whether they continue at all. Some choose to live with less, others choose to be alone, others choose not to pass this same game on to the next generation. And it is in this context that the so-called invincibles emerge. People without ties, without anchors, without roots, and above all, with nothing left to lose. Not because they want to be that way, but because the system itself pushed them in that direction. An atomized society creates atomized individuals, and then acts surprised when those individuals stop caring about rules, expectations, and social contracts that no longer make sense to them. Perhaps this is the greatest paradox of modernity. A world that promised freedom but delivered scripts. A world that demands more and more effort while offering less and less meaning. A system that desperately needs people to keep playing, working, consuming, and reproducing, while making the game itself more expensive, more exhausting, and less rewarding. In the end, falling birth rates are not the problem themselves, they are just the visible symptom of something much deeper. The real problem is a model of life that has stopped being desirable. And until that changes, as long as living remains exhausting, expensive, and emotionally empty, it won't matter how many speeches are made, how many campaigns are launched, or how many young people are blamed. They already understand the game, and many have simply decided not to play.
You know, it always comes down to this. It always comes down to the cost of living, doesn't it? And it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, even in Asia, you know, in Asia, the boomer generation, they had it better. Here on Angry Guy's YouTube channel, we like to talk smack about boomers. You know, we talk a lot about boomers all the time. And that's American boomers, by the way. That's American boomers. But what about Asian boomers? Right? What about Asian boomers? Because after the 1980s was Japan's golden decade. You know, I'm talking about Japan was like, it was considered as rich, if not more, than America. Right? So the boomers in that generation, they had it real good, man. Boomers had it real good. They can't complain. You know, the Japanese boomers, the Korean boomers, and the Chinese boomers. Did you know in China, I think it was the 1970s? I believe it was the 1970s. But in China, the Chinese government was giving away free houses. Yeah. Chinese government was giving away free houses in the 1970s and 80s. Right? So back then, they didn't even have to take out a loan. Many people didn't even have to take out a loan. They just got it from the government. Because the government wanted people to know, like, to build a life. You know, build families, have kids, do all this. You know, go work in the factory. You know? So back then, not only were they giving away free houses, but also people in China, people were able to keep more money in their pocket. Do a little bit of research. Right? I'm telling you, the boomer generation was like one of the most prosperous, richest, you know, mother effers on the planet. And although the American boomers were absolute hell on earth, you know, other generations of boomers were not so much. You know, they were not as horrible as the American boomers. I'm sorry. We had to bring it back all the way to the boomers, didn't we? But it's true. It's true. Because even in Asia, they still have a lot of financial problems. You know, Japan is being surpassed by their neighbors. Japan is not this, you know, amazing rich country like it used to be. You know, it has lost a lot of prestige. You know, and although it is still affordable, Japan is still affordable, it's still livable. I mean, you could work at a ramen shop and afford to live in an apartment in Japan. And you don't even need a car to live in Japan, right? So it is more comfortable to live there than in America, but they still got, you know, so many problems. You know, that's just causing people to not have children and get married and do all that. And it's a number of things. Like I said, the finances. One of the biggest things is the finances, right? But even in Asia, where it's like, you know, where it's cheaper to live, then comes the cultural problems, the laws. Remember the laws. The laws, because recently, I don't know if you heard, but recently this happened. I think it was about 2-3 months ago. Well, like the Chinese government, you know, made a new divorce rule where like the wife could not keep the house after divorce or the husband's money, right? So that's a brand new law. This is China. China did this recently. This year, 2025. So it's also the laws. The laws has also been a problem, and I've been wondering, man. I've been wondering, like, I thought this was just a Western thing, for real, man. I thought it was just a Western thing. Who was the dummy that made these stupid marriage laws in the beginning? Like, who was the idiot that made these marriage laws so freaking difficult? But anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. That's gonna be it for our reaction on the all Asian dilemmas, right? Talking about these similar issues in Asia. So guys, whatever your thoughts are, make sure to comment below, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for future notifications. Guys, it's your boy Andy Matrix. Godspeed, baby.